This is Matthew Cratter from Bitcoin University, and today I wanted to answer the question, does Bitcoin have any utility? This video was inspired by two different comments. The first one was from Rubix 2007 in this YouTube comment where he said, I sounded a little too aggressive, I realize, I'm sorry for that, but for someone who has spent countless hours across understanding blockchain and distributed ledger systems, the world that awaits is hiding in plain sight. The evidence is absolutely extreme when you do enough research. I'm just saying there's no way in hell Bitcoin ever makes up a significant part of my portfolio. It was just the entry drug like everyone. I would rather be in alts with undeniable use cases, there's that key word, and let Bitcoin drag them about until they unleash the power of utility. Don't get me wrong, Bitcoin is supreme to garbage fiat. I just don't know where it will end up in the long run against true utility-driven prices, not speculation prices. This is a critique of Bitcoin that we often hear from shitcoiners, from altcoiners, in which they say Bitcoin has no utility. This is what Justin Bonds is always saying on Twitter. He calls Bitcoin a modern day fool's gold without any foundation in utility. And utility is definitely a big boy economist word. Unfortunately for Justin Bonds, he is pitching his hedge fund, which has underperformed Bitcoin massively. It has very good performance when you look at it since April of 2016. It's up over 4,400%, which is quite impressive until you realize that Bitcoin itself is up over 6,000% over that same period. So Justin massively underperformed his benchmark, and this is one way you can begin to get a glimpse into why he's constantly on Twitter bashing Bitcoin. It's always funny though how these people who attack Bitcoin, they always have shitcoins or shitcoin hedge fund or mutual fund or something that they want to sell you instead. Justin is also up only 15% in his fund year to date versus Bitcoin, which is up 56%. So not to jump on him too much, but I think I wanted to give you the context here for the type of people who always make these arguments and then they get picked up by everyone else and repeated. So the question we want to answer is, does Bitcoin actually have any utility or usefulness, or are people like Justin Bonds and the previous commenter correct? Bitcoin is the hardest money ever created or discovered. What does this mean? It means that no one has an insider advantage that they can use to create more of it for themselves and for their buddies. For example, the US government can do many different interesting things. It can print up as many US dollars as people are foolish enough to accept. But the US government, in fact, all governments have no real advantage when it comes to Bitcoin. They can only purchase it on the market or mine it like everyone else. This is because Bitcoin is hard money. This is what it means. It's very difficult to produce. It's hard money like gold, and it's neutral money like gold. No one really controls it, except that Bitcoin is even better money than gold for the digital age. Obviously, we can't be sending shiny yellow rocks over digital communications channels in 2023. That's really ridiculous. And of course, the gold standard failed back in 1971. There's no reason to bring it back. Now, what does it mean that Bitcoin is hard money? It means it gives it a property that allows people to use it to protect the purchasing power of their savings over time. And this can be individuals, families, corporations, central banks, nation states, whatever level you're at. What is a store of value? It's something that preserves your purchasing power over time. How does Bitcoin compare to the US dollar as a store of value? As you can imagine, it's much better. As that initial commenter said, we can see here the purchasing power of a US dollar has fallen over time and just continues to fall. By contrast, Bitcoin, it's very volatile over the short term, but over the long term, it continues to go up and hedge your purchasing power. This was a great tweet from Wicked, pointing out that those who started dollar cost averaging Bitcoin at the all-time high at 69,000 are once again in the black. So this is the power of dollar cost averaging. You don't measure store of value for gold or stocks or treasuries over a period of weeks or months or years. You measure their value over multiple years, and this is how store of value is always measured when it comes to even traditional stores of value like gold. Gold has had numerous drawdowns of 30 to 50% even over my lifetime. Is store of value a large use case? Is this particular form of utility a very large use case? I would say it's probably the largest in the world. This is the great irony when people criticize Bitcoin, saying it's only a store of value. What are some competing stores of value? Physical gold at 11 trillion market cap. U.S. Treasuries approximately 33 trillion and growing every day. Stocks, call it 110 trillion globally. Real estate, something on the order of 300 trillion. If you add that up, that's about $500 trillion in total addressable market for store of value. It's a little bit misleading because, for example, real estate has some utility as a shelter, for example. But I think if you add up fine art, you add up all these different stores of value, you come up with something on the order of hundreds of trillions of dollars. To put that into perspective, Bitcoin's current market cap is only about 500 billion, or just a tenth of 1%, not 10%, not 1%, but 1/10 of 1% of the current value of that total addressable market. So this gives you an idea of the future purchasing power upside of Bitcoin. Now, does Bitcoin possess any additional utility in addition to being a global store of value? Yes, it does, because Bitcoin is very easy to transport, to verify or assay, and to self-custody without counterparty risk or risk of confiscation than any of these other assets. It's easy for a government to take your gold, or to take your house, or to freeze your bank account or your brokerage account, but it's impossible to do that with Bitcoin on a large scale, especially when you're holding your own private keys and you're not leaving your Bitcoin on Binance or Coinbase. Government or other thieves cannot go door to door for 100 million people who hold Bitcoin, put a gun to their heads, and ask for their Bitcoin private keys. This just isn't scalable, especially if that Bitcoin is secured cross-jurisdictionally or using geographically distributed multi-sig, for example. Now, what else makes Bitcoin really useful and gives it utility? You can send Bitcoin to anyone in the world without needing to open up an account anywhere, without needing to get a license or get permission from any person, group, or government. You can also mine Bitcoin without needing to ask anyone for permission. You can also sell goods and services and get paid directly in Bitcoin without ever needing to ask for permission from anyone. What's even better? When you sell something to the US government, for example, like let's say you're a weapons manufacturer and you sell the US government a big bomb, you get paid in US dollars. What happens after that? The Fed and the US Treasury collude to issue more government debt and fund the purchase of it, put it on the Fed's balance sheet, fund the purchase of it with freshly printed US dollars. And the printing of those new dollars, as we've seen over the past few years, degrades the value of those US dollars that the company, for example, just received for selling this bomb to the government. Bitcoin short circuits this process and allows you to settle your commercial transactions with hard, unstoppable money. It also makes it very difficult for the US and other countries to use money printers to wage war and just to print up money to buy bombs. So it has that effect, that associated effect of possibly world peace as well. That's probably a subject for another video. Tell me you are a shitcoiner without telling me you are a shitcoiner. If you say Bitcoin has no utility, you are probably one of these two types of people: an unscrupulous shitcoin promoter like Justin Bonds, or an uneducated person who hasn't spent 5 minutes on their own asking themselves very simple questions like, what is utility? What is usefulness? What are some really big categories of things that people seem to find useful globally? And money is probably the largest category. Store of value, censorship-resistant medium of exchange. Those are two characteristics of money: store of value and medium of exchange. These have far greater use cases than all the silly little things that altcoin and shitcoin promoters want to sell you. I'll end with a simple example from Cardano. I just Googled Cardano use cases, and this is the most recent one that came up from May of 2023. This is one of the CEOs, the CEO of Cardano. It's funny that they even have a CEO. You wouldn't expect that from a neutral, decentralized money. The CEO went on to expound on some of Cardano's real-life use cases. One such example is a solution implemented to verify the quality and authenticity of Georgian wine. I like the country Georgia, I like wine, but this is hardly a giant use case. In another venture, the foundation partnered with Switzerland for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. The partnership led to the launch of a charity stake pool where they're basically giving up some of the funny money, the monopoly money that Cardano printed up, and they're staking it. So these are two use cases. When you ask a shitcoiner what are the use cases of their coin, you usually get these tiny little total addressable markets like this, unlike the $500 trillion addressable market that is store of value and censorship-resistant medium of exchange. We shouldn't end there, though, because Cardano does have another use case which is very important and that Charles Hoskinson is very proud of. That is for creating social credit scores for kids in Africa. And I'll link to this in the description notes below if you want to watch this video as well to see another minor use case and another way that Cardano and the Cardano Foundation are exploiting third world people, in my opinion. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.